Okay, there we go. Now I'm recording. Hello. I'm up in my attic. I am doing some project for tomorrow. I have a festival I'm doing, but I have thoughts in my head that I need to speak about. I was just watching, I don't know if it's this week's topic. I don't know. I was watching The Pagan Perspective, one of my favorite channels, and they were talking about doubt. Now, which made me think, and I'm not thinking about doubting, but I was thinking about a lot of the stuff Cara was talking about. And there's a topic that I've wanted to write about many times, and I haven't, so I'm just gonna talk about it. And a lot of times, people will ask if spells work, or well, in my case, a few years back, I had seen an advertisement on Facebook, and they said, these spells are 100% foolproof, or these spells always work 100% of the time. And it kind of annoyed me because I call that BS. I call that BS. And I have a lot of thoughts on that. There's and that brings us back to, people, I guess this is how it comes about with the whole doubting thing. People make you doubt whether this happened or whether this didn't happen or whether your spell worked or whether your spell didn't work. But here's the thing with spells. As if you've done any type of spellcraft, you'll realize that there's a million different ways to have an outcome. There's not just one way to do a spell. If you want to do candle magic, you can do candle magic for any type of spell, for bringing money, for self-love, for abundance, for finding a job, for, you can use candle magic with kitchen witching, because you have your working candle beside you. There's a million different things you can do with one spell. And it causes a lot of problems with me when I hear people saying, oh, this spell is always going to work. But on the same note, I don't like it when I hear people be like, well, I don't like this author, or I don't like this because their spells don't work, which I've had people say to me before. They're like, oh, I don't like their spells. Their spells never work. Well, then that means their spells never work for you. Or, as I was raised Christian, so I use a lot of Christian terminology, but in the Christian world, you'll hear people say, God's time is not our time, and God works in mysterious ways, and all of that. And spell work is the exact same thing. Cara was touching upon the fact that, sometimes when you do a spell, it doesn't manifest in the way you expect. And with that being said, you might do a spell, you might not think it's actually working because it's not manifesting the way you thought it would manifest. And that can be for a variety of reasons, being, maybe you're not specific enough. That's my problem. I have a very hit or miss sort of spell work thing. I've done some spells that are just pow. I'll do them and it's I can see the change automatically. And as Cara was talking about, sometimes when you'll do a spell, it might not work as well the next time. And that's how spells work, And it has a lot to do with the need, the situation, your intentions. If you really are into planetary alignment and because each day of the week represents a different thing, and each time of the day represents a different thing, and each planet represents a different thing. So some people are very much in the specifics of casting spells. So if I'm going to do this spell, it has to be done at this time of the day because this time of the day focuses on this particular thing, and it has to be this day because this day focuses on this sort of thing, and it has to be this month and whatnot. Some spells can be very, very specific. And that's one of the things that I have a problem with when people say the spell always works, because, say you're reading a spell and it doesn't resonate with you. For my case, I guess I could be one of those people that say a lot of book spells don't work for me. Because if I follow a spell verbatim from a book, it doesn't work for me because I don't believe it well. Because it doesn't resonate with me. If you're going to do a spell and you're reading these words and you're like, dude, this feels stupid. Don't do that spell because 9 chances out of 10 it's not going to work for you. So do what works for you. I know there's a lot of people who are very, very rigid on spell work. It has to be done this way and this way and this way and this way. And some people, that's the only way it's going to work for them. Other people, they can do this way, this way, but if their heart's not in it and they don't think it's going to work, you know, it's probably not going to work. Or if it does work, it'll manifest in a way that they don't know. For example, I used a lot of money spells in the past. I learned this one where you take a blank check. You can make checks. I use checks from my actual bank account, from my actual checkbook, and it's a new moon spell to gain money. And basically what you do is on like the line where you need a certain amount of money, you need to know the specific amount of money you want. You write that specific amount of money on there, and then for you write it out for yourself, and then for like this purpose, I can't remember. It's something with the law of abundance. I'm trying to remember now. It's been a while because I haven't done it. Because my point is this: when I talk about a spell not always turning out the same way, this particular abundance spell, you write a check out. If you go online and you look up like abundance spell, new moon abundance spell, or check spell, or whatever, you can probably find various versions of it. But with this spell, you write, you know, how much you want, what it's for. You sign it. And you do this on a new moon, and it will manifest that amount of money. And I've had times where I've done this spell, and I have manifested that amount of money. Now, whether it works or not, people will be like, oh, with this circumstance, but it doesn't matter. I've done that spell, and I have, in turn, actually gotten that amount of money that I needed. Other times I have done that spell, and I didn't. But the circumstances around the need for that money got canceled. For example, the one time I needed money because I was going to go on a trip with my one friend, you know, and the only way I didn't have the money for it. So I did this spell on the new moon. This is this law of abundance spell with this check, and I never got the money. But on the day before the event, my friend who I was going to go to this event with, she actually canceled and said, I'm not going to be going to this event either. And the spell's still working. In my brain, the spell still worked, but it worked in the sense that I didn't need it to because it got canceled anyways. So that's a whole, you know, it's a matter of perspective. And then, depending on the type of spell you use, it can take longer. You know, a lot of times if you use moon phase spells, it's going to take longer. Like sometimes it might take an entire moon cycle for a spell to manifest. And if you don't have a lot of experience with different types of spells, you might be like, oh, I did this moon spell, but why isn't nothing happening? Well, because you got to wait a good 28 days for it to manifest. Now, that's not always the case. You know, fire spells, from my experience, when you burn shit, and it happens fast. It's a faster spell. But I remember someone saying about, like, when you use fire, it causes heart conditions. I don't even know, like, if that makes sense to somebody, cool, but I got to research more of that. But, or if it's like an earth spell where you're planting something in the ground. There's a lot of spells where you will bury things in the ground. And it has to work with the decomposition. And basically an earth spell, from my understanding, it takes longer because it's got to decompose. And once it's decomposed, the spell is released and it can manifest. That's a really kind of common thing to do. I do that type of stuff with like houseplants or gardening spells. There's a lot of hedge witchery that uses planting stuff in the ground. Yeah, now some people might not call that hedge witchery, but whatever. That's their jazz, and I just put that under the category. That's how I do it. But I hope this made sense. Also, for example, chants. I had mentioned before that some chants or some spells, if you'll see words that rhyme and whatnot, you might read it and you'll be like, this is a really great spell, but when you read it aloud, you feel silly or you can't find the rhythm. And so in turn, not being able to find that rhythm, not being able to get the words out properly can hinder you as well, because you can't really get in touch with that place in your brain to make it happen. You know, and with that being said, that's why you can tweak things. For a great example is, there's a chant there's a chant, you'll find it, there's like a meme. Is that the word? I don't know. It's one of those, you go on Instagram or you go on Pinterest or whatever, you'll find it. And it's like a sweeping chant that it goes, like sweep, sweep, sweep the ground. All negativity shall be bound. Banish all that is profane. Only positivity shall remain. Now with me, that's a lot of syllables. And I'm like, this is a great chant to like chant while you're sweeping. But for me, like the word positivity is too much. And I can't get it to flow. So for me, for example, I have this hanging up in my kitchen. I like wrote it on a piece of paper and like put contact paper over it and hung it above my brooms. And I changed it just a bit so I can add a rhythm to it. So with mine, everything else says it this way, but I tweaked it to just, and I sing it to the tune of Row, Row, Row Your Boat. So here we go. I goes, sweep, sweep, sweep the ground, and negativity be bound, banish all that is profane, only positive remain. And I can say that easily and not feel like a jackass. And it works that way. Now the other way, there's just too many syllables and I can't make it flow, and so it doesn't have any power for me. Sometimes you need to tweak things for your own purposes. And just that tiny bit of tweaking can make a huge difference in your spell work. I mean, you'll have, I remember for a while I was reading books that said, you know, the best spells are the ones you write yourself. I don't know if that's true. I mean, that, whatever. But that's, for a while I would see that a lot in books. And I mean, for some people that might be really true, but then for other people who might not, not everybody has a sense of rhythm or a sense of rhyme, or, you know, not everybody can do things in certain ways, you know, or they might not be ready for a certain type of spell, and it takes some guidance and some research and a lot of preparation, you know, and things might be different, you know. It's very interesting. Now, I found personally with me, a lot of my spells that have worked the best were ones that I just like threw together. Like I was like, okay, this person needs this. You know, for example, I had a friend who, it was a couple who were pregnant, or I can't remember if they were pregnant or they just had their child. They were homeless. They didn't have a home. They would come to our house, and I was just like, oh my gosh, they need a house. They need some serious vibes. And I threw this spell together for them. I just like devoured all my books. I'm like, what do I have to? And I just like threw this spell together, and it was like a powder fire spell. You know, I put a bunch of powdered herbs, and a lot of times I don't have great success with powdered herbs. Like, that's not something I generally have good success with for myself. Like, I can use herbs medicinally, but when I start putting herbs into like a magical purpose, like you use basil for prosperity or something, I tend to have a little fuzzy time. I've gotten better with that practice now, and I've had more success, but at the time when I did that spell, I didn't have great success with that sort of thing for myself. But I'd thrown all these herbs together, and I really put a lot of force into it, because I was like, they need this needs to be done. And within like 2 days, they got a house. You know, and that was like, pfft, there is direct. Now, I haven't been able to do that that one for myself. I find sometimes when I do spontaneous spells for other people, I have better success than what I do for myself. But I personally, I think that's because when I do a spell for somebody else, I have clearer intentions. You know what I mean? They have clear intentions. I have clear intentions. I know what it is. And a lot of times when I would do spells for myself, my intentions weren't quite so clear. They're a little more murky. And because of that, my outcomes were a little more hit or miss, or a little more murky. You know? So, it's never always going to be the same. You know, I've done different spells to help with headaches. I did this one like chant back when I was like 16. I did this headache chant. And it was like a German chant to get rid of your headache. And this was one of the first ones I had done ever. I was like probably 15 or 16, and it fucking worked. And I was like, oh my God. And be honest though, that one, I don't have great success with that one anymore. Like, I've maybe had it work like twice since then, but I haven't had great success with that one again. Why is that? I don't know. But that happens sometimes. People change. People are in different vibrations, different wavelengths, and possibly, you know, as you, where you're at, you know, sometimes things don't resonate anymore, and there's nothing wrong with that. And what might resonate with you might not resonate with someone else. And that's a big problem with, I mean, just in the simple act of spell casting and the diversity of spell casting, and, you know, this tradition and that tradition, and, you know, all of that, it can be very murky because it's all your own specific life, and no one else can live your life. So, yay! I don't know if any of this made any sense. But I needed to ramble, and I needed to get some words out of my head that had been rolling around for way too long. Way too long. I'm going to get back to my cutting. And you all have a wonderful evening. Yes, I know I look like a greasy hot mess, but you know what? I'm in the attic. I'm cutting up stuff. I'm the mom of 3. I've got stuff I got to get done, and so be it. You all have a wonderful evening. I love you. Mwah!